The first big gate of personal development that I believe everybody goes through in their own journey to maturity, happiness, fulfillment, aliveness, connection with others, ultimate life satisfaction, that first gate of personal change is awareness. Now, I know some of you already know this, but think about this. In any given moment, we can be aware of our feelings, of our environment, of how our emotions are affecting our minds, of our decision-making, of our surroundings, of God, of universe, of connection to this very moment. In any given moment, awareness can ebb and flow, can't it? And sometimes in your life, I know some of you feel this way, you're going so fast, there's so much on your plate, you're so busy at home and at work, everything's going 90 miles an hour, and it's like, it feels like you're so torn from happiness or torn from the moment that you don't feel connected. And that is when awareness is sort of out the door. And that's why in the last decade, the topic of mindfulness, went from sort of a subtle art to like a societal need. And as all of the research has been showing in the mindfulness research of how that can make us feel more grateful, happy, appreciative, loving, connected, and kind, and resilient, it's become more and more clear that people get this. But you don't go through the gates of awareness all the time by choice. Sometimes it's pushed upon you. I know many of you have had that story, just like I have in the past, where you weren't ready for change. You might have been resistant to change. Does anyone have any family members, team members, people in your life who are resistant to change? Anybody in the comments or the chat? It's just like you're around people, you're like, why won't my husband change? Or why won't my child want to be better? Or why won't my kid do better in high school? Or why? It's like, we all know somebody who just doesn't ever shift into that. And what you need to know, I'm going to make you sort of a casual coach today, or an influencer, or a leader today. We'll use all that under the term of influence today. If you want to influence others, you have to understand they're not going to start taking action to change until they've gone through the gate of awareness. And sometimes that gate of awareness, you can inspire it, you can role model it, and sometimes life just has to happen for them. That was my case. Some of you guys know when I was a young teenager, I had been through a heartbreak of a relationship, and I was in a very negative place. I didn't want to change. I was a stubborn person. It was one of the reasons I was so miserable. And being stubborn and being angry was a good recipe for a negative feeling in life. And it was those were great gates. Anger and frustration and being stubborn, that's a great slide right into depression, ultimately. That's what happened for me. I was so angry at the world. I didn't want to change. I was angry at this person. I just thought I was self-righteous and everybody else was wrong. And all of a sudden, I was an unhappy person. Because as you judge the world more from a self-righteous perch, you become unhappier. But that's why awareness is so important. Sometimes awareness is perspective checking. We forget where we're at. We forget what the rest of the world is like, and we're in our little bubble, and we judge others from that little bubble, or we think everybody else should be the same, and we forget about the hardships they face. We forget about what their life is like versus our life. And then we get that common part of, I think, society in which people don't understand one another. And it's that lack of awareness to other people's situations, that lack of where we're at in our life. And if we don't up our awareness, we don't change. And so awareness is a critical piece. When I'm ever working with a client one-on-one, the first thing I'm trying to gauge is, do they know where they're at in their life? And write this down. Do they know where the people around them are at in their lives? Because you want a big recipe for a frustrating life, you take someone who's super self-aware, drop them into a group of people who aren't. It's like oil and water. But sometimes you're that person in your family. Here you are in Growth Day doing your personal development work, learning, trying to develop a better mindset, better habits, better practices, better leadership, and the people around you don't. Sometimes that can be incredibly frustrating if you don't know how to guide them through that process. And sometimes they're going to be resistant to it. And we all know people like that. It's not a judgment. Sometimes you can't be responsible for everybody else in their lives. You got to let life be their educator. And I've said that in other, I'd say, more obnoxious ways in the past. I've said, hey, you can't be responsible for the train wrecks in everybody else's life. But hopefully, as we all mature and become more conscious, we realize that everyone walks a tough path. And as we become more aware of the difficulties others face, we become more compassionate, more kind, more thoughtful. But you and I both know where it begins, don't we? It begins within. It begins with a consistent practice of gaining greater self-awareness, to our real thoughts, our real feelings, our real desires, our real needs, a real understanding about where are we in our lives. I know friends who this last year, for example, they realized how incredibly unhealthy they were physically. And they finally decided, you know what? I got to get in shape. I got to eat better. I got to stop drinking so much. I got to start taking better care of myself. And they made major shifts. Why? Because maybe one day that moment of awareness hit for them. They looked in the mirror and they're like, oh my gosh, I hate what I see. Or they finally accepted how they felt, or they listened to that message in their brain that says, hey, you can't keep doing this. You got to get healthier. There was always that moment of awareness. Something happened. There was a moment where it clicked. What was that for you in your personal development journey? If you think about maybe the three biggest times of your life that you changed, like those big, what they often call in psychology, those inflection points, or those critical incidences. What were the three times when just major shift happened in your life? I promise there was a major gate to awareness that opened up for you. Either it was an insight, an aha, maybe you're like Eckhart Tolle, you're just laying in bed and all of a sudden, woo-wah, awareness and presence enters your life. A new level of consciousness lands on you. Wonderful. Maybe you had to go through something. It was a divorce, a business ending. You got fired. Somebody said no. You got in a health challenge. An accident happened. For me, as you know, an accident happened. I got in a car wreck, and it was the ultimate perspective check. At that point in my life, I thought I wanted to die. At that point in my life, I'd been suicidal and depressed. At that point in my life, I didn't see that my life could ever be abundant or happy or loving. I didn't get it. And then that car accident, bam. And that was like a knock on the head, literally, that opened up my eyes and made me realize, oh, I don't want to die. I want to live. I just don't know how. And that was my awareness. It was, I want to live. I don't know how, but I've got this second chance. And I understand I want to live. I understand I want to love. I understand I want to matter, but I don't know how. And that began a lifelong journey in personal development, and then psychology, and then philosophy, and then neuroscience, and then high performance studies to try and just understand, how do people change? Well, maybe as you're listening to, what were those three big things for you? Maybe it was a health thing. Something happened with your family. Maybe that was when you went off to school, or when you had the birth of your first child, or something happened and it shifted you into another level of awareness that said, I want to improve. I want to get better. I want to be healthier. I want to be happier. And if you haven't had that yet, then let me knock on the door a little bit and say, hey, this is a great time to gain some greater self-awareness. Without greater self-awareness, we aren't resilient. We aren't authentically confident. We aren't vibrant. We aren't healthy. We aren't able to deal with all of the chaos without conforming to everybody else. The moment we lack self-awareness is when the impulse to conform to everybody else enters. The moment we lack self-awareness, we don't know how to ask for what we need in an argument with our partner or spouse. The moment we lack self-awareness, we make a bad decision that we knew wasn't right for us. It's always the first thing, awareness. And so what we try to do here at GrowthDay is through all of our coaches and on this platform with the tools, we just keep trying to up that level of awareness in your life. And it can be as simple as, for us, for example, in my world as a coach, we like to help people score themselves in different areas of their life on a consistent basis. Because if you score yourself in different areas of your life, at least there's a metric to it. There's a number, there's something you can look at. There's some type of trend line versus just waking up and going, how do I feel today? That's not going to get you very far. At some point, you take it as a discipline to get better, to gain self-awareness. So one of my favorite things to do at this time of the month, that's why I want to do this session for you here today, is I like to, as many of you know, my personal practice at the beginning of each month is to do my monthly whole life assessment in GrowthDay. I want to know where I'm at in those categories. And I'll walk you through it today. If you haven't done it before, maybe this will be the first time you're going to do it. We're going to do it all together today. You can say, oh, that's how I use this. Oh, look at this thing. This is cool. Because if you get a trend line going and you really understand where you are at in each area of your life, I promise it's a major shift, especially over a period of time. Because some of you, if you're honest, you can't even remember how you felt 4 months ago. You can't remember a year ago. And sometimes tools like GrowthDay helps you go, oh, look at this weird trend line. I notice when this is happening in my life, I feel this way. Or I notice I'm getting stuck in this area. So I'm going to show you today how I actually use GrowthDay and how I'd recommend that you use it for this idea of gaining greater self-awareness. I'll begin today with your life scores section, and I'll walk you through just an example of that. And then I'll talk about what I've seen when people try to change these numbers and when people try to change their lives significantly. And I mean significantly in the sense you can feel it. You know, lots of people, you know, they might change their diet, but they don't feel differently sometimes. Or maybe, you know, they moved to a new city, but there they are. They brought themselves along, right? Or maybe they shifted a relationship, but they noticed the same problems keep showing up. That's because if the same problems keep showing up, the consciousness level did not rise. If the same problems keep showing up, perspective didn't happen. If the same problems didn't keep showing up, then what happens is it's our self-awareness. It's not going up. Life is changing, things are changing, responsibilities are adding, but we're not getting better. And so that's why it's important to use the tools of GrowthDay to get better. And I'll show that with you here right now. I'm going to share with you my screen. Hopefully you guys can see this. And I'll share with you just how I would use this for self-awareness. Okay. Now I'm in the desktop version is what you're looking at right now in GrowthDay. This is the desktop version. I like to do it desktop because I approach it like work. My personal development, I approach it very much like work. I do it every day. But I'm going to go today, I'm going to skip all the others. I'm just going to go to the life scores section. Okay, over on the left, you can see life scores. So I just clicked in that. And there's 3 ways that you can increase your self-awareness on a consistent basis. Every day, you can monitor 10 areas of your habits. These are your personal development habits. And we chose these 10 because they're the highest correlate in research leading to long-term success, well-being, health, and positive relationships. Okay. Then you see there's the weekly section. That's the middle one. The weekly one is, hey, it's Friday or Saturday. Look back at your last week, gain some self-awareness to it. Score yourself in the major habits of your life. And then the whole life, the monthly whole life section, that's the one on the right. I'm going to go into that one today. And you'll see down here, I can just come over here. Hopefully I can do it. I'm just going to show you what my history looks like. I'm just going to go down and kind of cut to the chase a little bit here for you. But you'll see there's these different areas. If you took the actual test, the assessment every day, you see you score yourself in the area of health. And I'm going to walk through each of these and just ask you some questions today. And if you're in the app, actually, I encourage you while I'm talking, just go through it and take your scores. If you're not in it, I want to just show it to you all so you can start conceiving it with me in your mind. First, your health. Could you please be honest on a score of 0 to 100%? 100% is this was your healthiest year ever. You were awesome. in your health this year? What grade would you give yourself this year? Would you give yourself, you were at 100%, you were super awesome, you were at a 40%, you were at a 30%, you were at a 20%? Now, in the monthly life assessment, it's going to ask you it based on the month, right? It'll ask you on the last 30 days, and you can gauge it based on that. I think at where we're at in this time of the year, you could look back at the whole year and really gauge this as well. But let's say your health this last month wasn't what you wanted it to be. What you'll see is when you take this assessment, you'll get recommendations today and over a period of days based on your scores that will help you watch some video training that will improve each of these areas. What I'd love for you today to ask yourself is, do you have the energy that is required for you to serve at the levels you desire in your life? This has been a major gate of awareness for a lot of my clients. As a certified high performance coach, we talk a lot about energy. And that simple question, do you have the levels of energy that are required to serve at the levels you want to in life? And I don't want you to just go, yeah or no. Don't make it too binary, yes or no. Instead go, well, if 10 was I could do what I needed to do and serve the way I wanted to do, inspire the way I wanted to, that'd be awesome. That would be there, or it would be lower. What's your score here? This is, again, why I'm asking. I know some of you are in the tool, so you're able to do this as I'm going. Some of you can't, so forgive me as I'm walking you all through it, just for today. But I really believe that's a critical question. When I ask my clients that, a lot of them go, oh, no, I'm wiped out. And that simple question, see, a lot of the questions you ask yourself or the questions that are posed to you, that opens the gate to self-awareness, doesn't it? Because some of you, you're working so hard and you're so focused and you're just burning through that no one's asked you to pull back and go, how's your energy really? Is it the energy your team needs to feel? Is the energy your family needs to feel? Do you have the energy mentally and physically to make it through the day and to feel the day and to be happy with the day? That all comes back to obviously your health, but lots of people don't have any health practices. That's why their personal development, even before we go through all the rest of this, it's like, if your health practices are off, then of course the rest of our life is off. I've learned in my life, and many of you have too, everything's about intention. Like, what is the intention of my communication with this person? And I believe there's 3 intentions we have to set. Okay, so this is what my idea is. You got to set intention for learning, honoring, and improving. Okay, this is all one point, so please write this down. Set an intention for learning, honoring, and improving. This is my modus operandi when I sit down with somebody. My whole thing in sitting down with people, and this is not just my coaching career, this is life. Like, if we go to like breakfast together, right? Go to lunch together, hang out. My whole mode is, I want to learn about this person. Notice I don't say, I want to show I'm awesome. No, I want to learn about this person. Meaning, has learning been your primary mode of operation with your spouse recently? Has learning been your primary mode of operation with that team member? Has learning been your primary mode of operation in communicating to groups? Or when you're talking with your partner or the person who you love, is it always just about, you got to tell them what you need? You got to tell them what the to-do list is. You got to tell them what the agenda is. And you live in communication land that is what I call agenda-based, not learning-based. Some people only talk at their kids. We're doing this, 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 and this, and this. But they never learn from their kids. So it's a different relationship, right? Agenda-based communication, which is usually to-do list, what are we doing, where we're going, versus the first primary thing is learning. And I think this is so important. If we can just shift everything. Listen, I always tell people, listening skills without the very primary intention of learning is just a tactic. Does that make sense? I know in like junior varsity levels of conversation about communication, be a great listener. Well, what does that mean? Well, the intention is to learn. Listening is one of the vehicles for that. Anybody? Can I get an amen on a Sunday? We got to learn from each other again and be open to learning from each other instead of going at each other with our political agenda, going at each other with our to-do list, going to each other with our value ethic. Like, we stopped learning from each other as a culture, and that's how you get tribalism and division at the epic levels we face worldwide now, because the intention to learn from another went out the window, and the intention to persuade or argue at or accuse other people went up, right? So let's remember, setting the intention for learning. Think about this. If your umbrella intention is to have ambition, I want great relationships and I want to learn from others, that frames every method, every tactic, and every principle underneath. Okay, learning, here's the other one, honoring. I love this one. Very few people talk about this, so I think it's important. In a relationship, in your communication style should be honoring of other people. What does that mean? Honoring means you hear what they say, you reflect it back, you honor that. That's a great idea. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate you. I really value that you shared that. I respect that you're participating right now. I'm thankful that we're having this conversation. Also saying very simple things like, I appreciate you did this. Good job at that. Honoring the other person so they feel heard, valued, respected, and appreciated. Honoring the other person so they feel heard, valued, respected, and appreciated. That's like everything, right? How good have you been at honoring your partner, your spouse, persons that you care about? If your parents are around, have you been speaking to them and honoring their difficulties this year? The people who you love in your life, your family, have you been honoring their unique and difficult journey through what is a crazy and wild year? I mean, think about your last 10 major conversations. Were you honoring of the other? Now, my bet is in our community here, you do. But this is a very key principle. In your communication patterns with other people, is learning there as your intention, is honoring the other there as intention. Even when I go into a place where I know I'm gonna have a conflict with someone, my whole mindset shifts. Make sure they feel honored and respected in this process. Make sure they feel that. Honor them for showing up, honor them for trying, honor them for a good job when they do a good job, honor them for sharing their voice, honor them for participating, honor them for giving you the time of day. Really, like if we can remember the value of each relationship, everything can change. All right, so our intention is for learning, honoring, and the last thing is improving. You want the most advanced communication skill in the history of the world? Try to improve another person's day. Try to improve another person's day. Listen to what they're saying and try to ask questions or give advice when it's sought or share an idea to help them improve their situation, their day, their feeling, their mindset. My mode is whoever is here, I am here to be of service. Whoever's in front of me, I'm going to try to really learn about them, to honor them as a person, and to help them reach whatever goals that they're after, right? You've heard me say that in my mission statement forever. It's like to help people achieve their goals faster. That's just part of the conversation with me. And I think that's given me great skills with other people because it's taught me how to listen for what they want. So this one, I know I'm belaboring this point, but I think this is so important. You've got to set that intention. I'm going to learn here. I'm going to honor this person. I'm going to help this person improve. I'm going to learn here, honor this person, help them improve. Learn here, honor this person, help them improve. That little triangle of goodness is running in my brain all the time. And that helps me, right? I don't always get it right. I'm not a perfect communicator, but I think I get paid at the level I do as a coach. I think I have the depth of relationship with my family and my friends the way that I do because these things are my value ethic. Don't always get it right. Plenty of time, just like you, I can be in a hurry. Plenty of time, just like you, I've got an agenda. plenty of time, just like anybody else. We don't always understand people, appreciate them, agree with them. That's okay. But when I lead with these things, I want a great relationship with this person. So I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna honor them, I'm gonna serve them. From that perspective, my odds of having great relationships are way high. Leadership is all about alignment and autonomy. And your job as a leader is like a sculptor, like an artist. And the two tools that you have as an artist, as a leadership artist, they're both chisels, and you're gonna go shape something. You've got an alignment chisel and you got an autonomy chisel. And you got to use these two to shape your culture, to shape people's behavior, to shape how you direct things. You're an artist. And it takes artistry to understand them too. So let me talk about each one of them. Okay, first one is alignment. Your role or your position or the influence that you're developing with other people, which we'll talk about, is so much about you learning, how do I align people towards that vision decision? How do I align everyone's thoughts, feelings, beliefs, efforts towards something significant? How do I align everyone's thoughts, feelings, efforts towards something significant? You're really playing an alignment game. I hope by now you've read my book, High Performance Habits. I'm so blessed with the success of that book, but also, never worked harder on any research study in my life than High Performance Habits. But one of the things I always hear from readers literally around the world is the love of that one story where I tell about the story of the woman who she discovered as a striver her whole life. She could get things done. She could knock off the to-do lists. She could make it happen. She could set the plans. She could mobilize people. She was a high performer. She was great at what she did. But one day she realized that, achievement wasn't her problem. She kept thinking she had to achieve the next thing to be happy, achieve the next thing, achieve the next thing, achieve the next thing. And then one day she realized actually achievement wasn't her problem. Alignment was her problem. She was getting things done, but it wasn't aligned with the truth of who she was. She was capable, but a lot of her efforts were all over the place and they were aligned or focused. She wanted to live a great quality of life, but her lifestyle and work style weren't in harmony so that she could enjoy or be satisfied by her efforts. And so she was great at achievement, terrible at alignment, so she was miserable. Wow. I literally can still remember her voice when we had that breakthrough as I was coaching her. It was like, click. She got it. Oh, I'm good at achievement, but I suck at alignment. No wonder I'm miserable. Well, guess that comes into your family too. That comes in your personal life. That comes in your work life. That comes in your teams. It's like you might be getting a lot done, but if people don't feel aligned, the culture sucks. You might be getting a lot done, but if you don't feel aligned, you're getting the wrong things done. You might be getting a lot done, but if it's not aligned with your true interests, your true passions, things that draw from you, that twin powers of curiosity and enthusiasm. If it's not aligned with that, you can do it all day long, but now it starts feeling miserable, even if it contributes, even if it makes a difference. Some of you are doing great things that make a difference in the world and you don't care about it anymore. And you're torn up and guilty inside and you feel shame. I have this opportunity to make a difference. I'm not doing it. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. It's not an opportunity that's aligned with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You haven't found alignment yet. Either you got to get your mind right to be in that vision decision. You have to summon yourself and like, oh, right, I got to realign here. I got to realign. Let me get in this game. Let me be here. Let me row together. Or you got to get out of the boat because you don't want to be that guy or gal with that oar and you're moving that rudder all over the place, ruining everybody else's alignment and their speed. You've got to take accountability of that, leaders. If you're in the wrong place, you got to remove yourself fast. Ditto, if you're the leader and you got someone who you've said, hey man, put that oar in here at the same time we're all doing it. Go like this. Hey, are you okay back there? Do you need anything back there? Seems like we're not in alignment here. Got to get in alignment here. What do we got to do? Let's have some conversations. Oh, you can't get in alignment? You refuse to get in alignment? Get out the boat. You can't have people who are misaligned on your team. You just can't do it. Now, I know that brings up the other person, but what if that's my husband? What if that's the kids? It's like, okay, great. Then you take that ability for yourself to stay internally aligned with what's important to you, but then you got to come together on what that decision is for them to move forward towards it. That's those things all coming together. Now, I said you have two tools. One is alignment, and the other one is autonomy. Autonomy. I think in the last decade, the word trust got a lot of play, which I love, but I think autonomy is one of the actual tools that sculpts that outcome. Autonomy means you give other people decision-making authority and trust to do stuff. Autonomy means you let the other person be the other person. You let them express themselves fully, be who they really are, choose to align or not. In other words, autonomy means to hold up the autonomy tool, you got to put down the control stick. You got to go, okay, all right, I'm going to hand you some power here to make this decision or do this thing. Or autonomy means I'm just going to let you do your thing and I'm going to be okay with it. As long as you're aligned, be you. I mean, the famous story, and I have my executives always read this book called 11 Rings. And it's the story of Phil Jackson taking the Chicago Bulls to 6 rings and then the LA team to, I think, 5 rings, if I remember right. An absolute, probably the best coach living today. And his story is so extraordinary. And he shares in the book, and as he talks of the famous story of, you had Jordan and Pippen and then some changes, and then you had Dennis Rodman. This wild character, this person who was uncontrollable by other teams, who'd been fined and sanctioned and almost kicked out of the NBA. And no one could get a hold of this guy. And you see that what Phil was a master at was allowing Dennis Rodman to be Dennis Rodman, making sure that he was part of the process, making sure that he understood where everyone was going, what the needs were, where we were aligned, what we were working on, but allowing Dennis to be Dennis, Rodman to do the Rodman thing. And I think it's so important as a coach, as a leader, that you understand autonomy means let their authenticity fly. Let that authenticity be part of it. Don't micromanage it. Don't control it. Don't cut it out of existence. Let people be who they are in your family, on your teams. And demand that of yourself too, right? Demand that of yourself, that you are authentic. Demand of yourself that you are autonomous and not just pushed around doing everything else everybody else says to do. That's personal development 101, guys. We're in Growth Day. We got to talk about that. It's critical. I want you to think about that. Okay, who in your life, you got these two tools to shape things. Notice micromanagement is not in those two hands. Be very cautious, my friends. That's where people mess it up all the time. You micromanage the kids. What happens? They don't develop the autonomy. What happens? They follow the wrong crowd. You got to be careful. It happens in every area of our relationships. You micromanage that spouse. It has to go here. This has to be this way. At some point, they're like, geez, I feel like I'm in a prison here. This is crazy. Why does everything have to be an exact way all the time? It's like, let me be a person. Let me do my thing. You got to be careful. You got to be aware. You got to give them autonomy. You got to keep people aligned. It's one of my favorite topics in leadership. I hope this supports you all. This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.